Shifting our focus now to the Netherlands. The Dutch government has resigned today after a report exposed how the government wrongly accused thousands of families defrauding the tax office.
We zijn eensgezind. Als het hele systeem heeft gefaald, kan alleen gezamenlijk verantwoordelijkheid worden gedragen. En dat heeft tot de conclusie geleid dat ik zojuist de koning het ontslag heb aangeboden van het hele kabinet.
Parliamentary report revealed that the government's mismanagement of childcare subsidies drove thousands of families to financial ruin. The inquiry concluded that unprecedented injustice had been done to innocent families who were forced to pay back benefits, causing many to face acute financial problems. Rutte, in office since 2010, said that the affair, spanning almost the entire past decade, was shameful. Compensation of at least $36,500 is being paid to roughly 10,000 families. The Parliamentary Committee found that the tax office ruthlessly enforced repayments of subsidies without giving families the opportunity to show their innocence.
Resign and to tell to the citizens of the Netherlands, where we will never treat you like this again. We will never hunt citizens for their money again. So maybe symbolic, but the only answer.
The government will stay on as caretaker government until the general elections scheduled in March. The Netherlands has recorded nearly 900,000 coronavirus cases and more than 12,000 deaths. Now we are being joined by Stephanie van den Berg, Editor-in-Chief at the International Justice Tribune, for more on this. Thanks for being with us, Stephanie. Now, the Dutch government has resigned after a report exposed how the government wrongly accused thousands of families of fraud of the tax office. Take us through the details of this report.
Well, what happened was that the tax office had tried to streamline, after there was some benefit scandals, had tried to streamline and crack down on benefit scandals. And one of the ways they streamlined is that they looked with their software and they picked out people with double nationalities and then started checking. And there's the Dutch subsidies program is really complicated, where the government repays part of your childcare costs, but you have to pay them themselves, and then the government gives subsidy. And what happened was, because of this crackdown on benefit fraud, there was a rule that even if you had made a slight mistake, you had to give the entire sum of what you owed back. So instead of making small adjustments for small mistakes, immediately you had to return all the benefits you got for childcare. So for families, that was tens of thousands of euros at once. And many of these families didn't have that much leeway, and so it led to people being evicted from their homes, not being able to pay the rent. Even a mother who was eventually evicted from her house and then lost custody of her children because she no longer had a house to live in. Those are the kind of huge consequences, life-changing consequences that this fraud hunt had on the people, and that a commission concluded after years of parents complaining and the media trying to dig this up, but the government being very reluctant with information. And then finally, after these 15 years, this commission came up with that this was really an injustice done, and that this was the worst kind of injustice, and that this shouldn't be allowed to happen in a rule of law state like the Netherlands. And with that, the Rutte government really had no chance to step down over it.
Right. Now, this, of course, comes at a critical time with the government 2 months to go to elections, and in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. What are the next steps? The government will stay in as a caretaker until the next elections.
Yes, so we'll have a caretaker government, and already all the kind of opposition parties, because what happens when the government steps down, in the Netherlands, they agree with Parliament which subjects they can handle that are not quote-unquote controversial. And so Parliament still has to agree, but it looks like the Dutch Parliament will agree that everything to do with combating the coronavirus, and also everything to do with ensuring that the families that were victims of this benefit fraud scandal are compensated, will not be marked as controversial. And that means that the government will basically continue as they have. So they will have full authority and power to combat in these two areas. So Rutte spent most of his press conference also ensuring people that the Dutch fight against COVID will continue as it has.
Right. And finally, Stephanie, how did this kind of scandal carry on for just so long, and what kind of compensation can these families who have suffered so much expect?
Well, one of the reasons it was allowed to carry on for so long is that the Dutch tax office, either willfully or just out of incompetence, that is something that has to be looked at more clearly, was very, very reluctant to give information about this. So parents did complain, and there are lawyers who've been working these cases for years and years, but the tax office would really not give any information about why these people were targeted. And it took a very long time, and actually two very, activist parliament members to finally get the information from the government what actually happened. And I forgot your second question, I'm sorry.
Right, what kind of compensation can these families who've been so badly affected expect?
Well, now after all these years, the government has said straight off, everybody who is affected by this will get 30,000 euros. So that's almost $36,000. Straight off as just a way to start their lives again. But there are people who lost a lot more. So there's about half of these people, of the victims, who actually lost more money. And so the government will give this 30,000 euros just straight off, just to make sure that these people are able to restart their lives in a way. And then they will look if there are people who actually deserve more compensation, and but that is taking a long time. So decided on this blanket payment to make it easy so that they don't have to piece together how much everybody owes right away, because it has already taken so long for these people to be compensated.
Right. Stephanie, thank you for bringing us all the latest there. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.